You may have heard about this amazing journal called Sapir. It's a quarterly journal of ideas, and it's edited by New York Times columnist Bret Stephens. And guess what? Sapir is something that really influences me personally. It has a wide range of ideas, a diversity of thought, and it makes a big difference on people like me. Every single issue of Sapir explores a theme that makes me think, and it shows different perspectives on that theme, whether it's activism or diversity or faith or Zionism. And it's featured incredibly thoughtful writers, from Einat Wilf to Tober Hellerstein to Roya Hakakian to Michael Koplow. And I've even written for Sapir, and I quote Sapir often in this podcast because of the different thinkers that they highlight. So if you appreciate this podcast and you've learned from this podcast, then Sapir might be for you. And here's the cool thing. You could receive 4 beautiful issues a year for free right in your mailbox at home at no charge. It's free. You could get it. So subscribe today at sapirjournal.org/Noam, completely free of charge. That's sapirjournal.org/Noam. And I'll spell it for you. sapirjournal.org/Noam. Noam. I thought you would know how to spell that. And I figured you should know how to spell journal also. Anyway, click the link in the episode notes or just go to sapirjournal.org/Noam. It's all there, and I think you'll find it incredibly insightful. Hey, I'm Noam Weissman, and this is Unpacking Israeli History, the podcast that takes a deep dive into some of the most intense, historically fascinating, and often misunderstood events and stories linked to Israeli history. This episode is generously sponsored by Friedkin Philanthropies and by the Koret Foundation and is inspired by Israel 21C. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Koret. Thank you, Friedkin. Love you guys. Listen, if any of you want to support or sponsor an episode of Unpacking Israeli History, or if you just want to say what's up, email me at noam@unpacked.media. Before we start, as always, check us out on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, all the exciting places. On the World Wide Web, you've heard of it? Just search Unpacking Israeli History and hit the follow or subscribe button. Okay, yalla, let's do this.
אנו מכריזים בזאת על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל. היא מדינת ישראל.
We, the people of Israel, are prepared and anxious to meet the representatives of our neighbors without any preconditions.
There are people in Israel and elsewhere say it's impossible to make peace between the Arabs and Israel or the Jewish people. I think they are wrong.
I've never had the slightest interest in learning French. The spelling alone is enough to put me off. There's no need for all those silent is and oohs. I don't even know if I said that correctly, but this song, it makes me want to brush up on the language of croissants and fromage. Did I say that correctly? I have no idea. I'm really making an embarrassment of myself. But just so that I could sing along. It'd be amazing. Yes, I said croissant instead of croissant. Of course, after learning French, I would also have to learn to sing because those are some seriously impressive vocal stylings. But hey, one thing at a time. For those of you who haven't jammed out to this banger and are like, why haven't I heard this on the radio yet? Don't worry. This may never make it to North American radio, but it is already a staple at Jewish celebrations around the world. Let me explain. Look, as an American, I feel like I've been saying that a lot. As an American, listen, I'm fully aware that the rest of the world doesn't yet understand some of our brilliant innovations, like our units of measurement, which looked at the metric system's precision and logic and went, okay, but what about measuring distance using the average length of the human foot? That's a whole bit. Probably saw it on SNL. Anyway, but if you ask me, the most American thing about us is that we would never in a million years participate in a continent-wide singing competition whose aesthetic is best described as glitter and kitsch. Our friends across the Atlantic, however, love glitter and kitsch. Once a year, most of Europe, plus a number of non-European countries, which we'll talk about in a bit, get together for a week-long festival of song, camp, and ridiculous outfits. Eurovision is the longest-running international televised music competition in history, and it celebrates the continent's diversity with some over-the-top pageantry that makes your average drag queen look demure. It's fun, yes, it's kitschy, and the spectacle is the point. Well, technically, the initial point was to unify and maybe even heal Europe after the devastation of World War II. Details. These days, plenty of countries participate that did not even exist during the time of World War II, including some that aren't even in Europe. Like, Israel, which has participated in the contest since 1973, coming in first on 4 separate occasions. The Jewish state's participation in Eurovision hasn't always been welcomed or smooth, and since October 7th, the controversy has only grown stormier. But despite boycotts and protests, despite the online hate and the in-person security threats, Israel continues to send performers to Eurovision to represent the Jewish state. And in this 2-part series, we are going to talk about why. Why? Yep, that's right. This is another 2-parter. Man, I love these. There are just so many questions to answer. Like, why does Israel continue to participate in Eurovision, a contest dedicated to unifying a different continent? For those keeping score, Israel is not in Europe. Does the Jewish state's performance in Eurovision change the way the country is perceived, whether by others or by itself? More to the point, does Eurovision and other events like it even really matter? It's not an exaggeration to say that I have been waiting 5 years to talk about this, because fun fact about me, I love Eurovision. I love the pomp, I love the spectacle, I love the ridiculousness. I love the coordinated dances and elaborate stage sets and the over-the-top costumes. I love it all. But I also love Eurovision for a slightly more on-brand reason. I think you know it. It too is history. Glittery, sequined history. True, not the kind of history you'd find in a textbook, at least not the kind my high school used. But the contest does reflect the world's changing cultural mores, as well as Israel's role in those changes. And as we've said 1 or 2 or 500 times already on this show, the story of the Jewish state is so much deeper, so much richer than its history of Arab-Israeli, Palestinian-Israeli, or Iranian-Israeli conflict. Yes, conflict sadly animates much of Israel's history, including its participation in Eurovision. But it's not the whole story. And it's my hope that showcasing different facets of Israeli culture will add new dimensions to your understanding of the Jewish state. In researching this, it certainly added new dimensions to mine. So put on your feather boa and knee-high stiletto boots. You don't have to. Temporarily erase the concept of good taste from your brain. And let's dive into the complicated, occasionally tragic, and often delightful story of Israel's participation in Eurovision. This week, we'll talk about why a country in Southwest Asia even participates in Eurovision. Going to start with Israel's very first performance all the way up to the country's 3rd groundbreaking win in 1998. Next week in part 2, we'll explore how Israel's attitude towards Eurovision changed over the years and why it remains so critical to Israelis and diaspora Jews, even as other European countries boycott. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We got to start at the beginning. And like all good stories, this one starts with the inexplicable reach of the European Broadcasting Union. Pop quiz. Which of the following countries' broadcast organizations are members of the European Broadcasting Union? A, the United Kingdom. B, Morocco. C, Israel. D, Libya. E, all of the above. If you guess E, congratulations, you're very good at context clues. If you guess A and you're like, yo, what's the deal? Only the UK is actually in Europe. Well, you're right about that, even though many Brits view themselves more as British than European. But it turns out geography or cultural identity is less relevant to EBU membership than invisible factors like radio frequencies, transmission coordination, and satellite coverage. In short, broadcasters in Africa and Asia have been eligible to join the European Broadcasting Union since its inception in 1950. 9 years after Israel's founding, the Israel Broadcasting Authority joined the EBU, just in time for the second ever Eurovision Song Contest. But Israel couldn't participate in Eurovision in 1957 because the country had A, no money, and B, no television. It's true, the Israel Broadcasting Authority was radio only until 1965. Nerd corner alert. When TV finally came to Israel in 1965, it debuted with a single channel that focused mainly on educational broadcasts. No wonder early Israelis built so much infrastructure in such a short time. There was, quite simply, nothing else to do. By 1972, however, the landscape had changed. When the wildly popular Israeli singer Ilanit traveled to Germany to record an album, her German producer suggested she enter the Eurovision Song Contest as Germany's representative. It was a huge opportunity for Israeli music to break out into an international market, and Ilanit was intrigued. But when she looked at the participation requirements, she realized that as a member of the EBU, the Israel Broadcasting Authority was eligible to participate in the song contest. In fact, every year since 1957, the European Broadcasting Union had been sending the Israelis a very nice formal invitation to participate in Eurovision, and every single year, the IBA ignored them for the simple reason that there was just no money in the budget for such things. So Ilanit and her band decided to raise the money themselves, paying for their tickets by appearing on the cover of an Israeli music magazine holding a bag printed with the logo of a local travel agency. And that is how Israel made its debut at Eurovision, 18 years after the inaugural competition. It would be great for the story if Ilanit had won the contest her first time out of the gate. She did not, but her performance did break a record, coming in fourth, the best showing for a debut country since 1957, with the love song "Ei Sham," or "Somewhere." It was a purposely upbeat, hopeful song for a less than upbeat, hopeful nation. Just a few months before Ilanit flew to Luxembourg, a different group of Israelis had arrived in Europe for an international competition. The Israeli athletes who came to compete in the 1972 Munich Olympics did end up making headlines, but not for the reasons they had hoped. Instead, they earned the heartbreaking distinction of being kidnapped, held hostage, and murdered on live TV. For more details about this tragedy, check out the link in the show notes. To say Ilanit's security was tight in the aftermath of Munich would be an understatement. She did not move without a posse of bodyguards and police officers, and rumors swirled that the singer was wearing a bulletproof vest under her dress. Ilanit later debunked that, but let's face it, it's not like it was an outlandish rumor. Meanwhile, the audience was warned not to stand up during the performance unless they wanted to get shot. But you would never know any of this from the performance. She belted out the entire song with an unwavering smile, clearly overjoyed. It was a triumphant debut for a controversial contestant. As the Israeli delegate, Ilanit was well aware that she was acting as an ambassador for a nation that usually made headlines for all the wrong reasons. In April of 1973, Israel's global reputation was still relatively strong. Just a few months before the Yom Kippur War, the country was still riding the high of its miraculous victory in the Six-Day War in 1967. For so many Europeans, the country represented a feel-good success story, a scrappy underdog who repeatedly defied the odds, whether on the battlefield or a stage. Much later, Ilanit reflected, "When I was in the Eurovision in 1973, they loved Israel so much. They praised us so much, something that today doesn't happen. They don't love us internationally." Of course, not everyone was heaping praise on the Jewish state. The Arab world at the time reacted predictably to Israel's inclusion in the contest. 6 years after the Khartoum Resolution, in which the members of the Arab League vowed there would be no peace with Israel, no recognition of Israel, and no negotiation with Israel, the Arab world was holding fast to its economic, military, and cultural boycott of the Jewish state, which got pretty awkward when Israel won 5 years after its debut. "1978 was a huge year for Israel. Huge. That September, Egypt and Israel signed the Camp David Accords that would form the basis for the lasting peace treaty between the two sworn enemies. But even more importantly, it was the year of Israel's first Eurovision win. The disco banger, Abane Bia Boa Be. Abane B. Sounds like nonsense. But examine the chorus carefully and the nonsense syllables might start to make sense. Abane B, Aboa Be. Abane B, Aboa Be, Aboa Ba. You've probably noticed the repetition of the B sound there. That's not an accident. The chorus was written in Israel's version of Pig Latin, which is called Sfat Habet, or B language. It's a simple formula. Sfat Habet inserts a B sound after every syllable. So shalom becomes, you ready to learn this? Here we go. So shalom becomes sha-ba-lo-bom. And I love you, ani ohev otach, becomes abba nibi obo hebev, obo tobach. Honestly, it's annoying. No, seriously. Honestly, it kind of makes my head hurt. In fact, Sfat Habet was so difficult for non-Hebrew speakers that some took to singing, I wanna be a polar bear, which as far as misheard lyrics go, it's kind of funny and fun. Personally, I have a soft spot for Abane B. I do. Abane B, Aboa Be. I first heard it performed by an Australian Jewish high school choir from Mariah College. Shout out to my Australian Sydney listeners. Love you guys, and Melbourne, and all of you guys in Australia. But anyway, shout out to all y'all. When you guys came to Baltimore, where I grew up, if you listen to this, you know that, and I went to Beth Tefillah, you visited, Mariah visited, and they sang Abane B, Aboa Be. And I was like, that is not a language I've ever heard. Is that how they speak in Australia? Language confusion aside, the crowd loved it. I loved it. It helped that the song was a banger. It really was. Upbeat and theatrical, with a slow interlude that allowed lead vocalist Izar Cohen to show off his vocal chops. And then there were the coordinated dance moves, the matching glittery outfits. I'm like smiling ear to ear just saying this. Cohen and his band to Alpha Beta were young, attractive, exuberant, and maybe, to the largely European crowd, even a little exotic. Previous Israeli participants in Eurovision had all looked more or less, I don't know, white or white passing, whatever people say. Most of them were Ashkenazi, Jews whose ancestors had spent the long years of exile in Europe. But Cohen, with his dark skin and gravity-defying cloud of curly hair, was from a Yemenite family. Most of the world had no idea that Yemenite Jews even existed, or that Israeli and Jewish culture went beyond matzo balls and the Holocaust. Partially, that ignorance was by design. I've talked at length in other episodes about Israel's founding fathers' vision for the country. Secular, westernized, in many ways European, Ashkenazi, they hadn't bargained on the nearly 1 million Jews from Arab and Muslim countries who arrived in Israel between 1948 and 1980. And they certainly did not expect that these Mizrahi Jews, as they're called, to completely upend the culture of the Jewish state, to like totally redesign it. For the first few decades of the country's existence, radio stations refused to play Mizrahi music. That's wild. They chose instead to broadcast the folk, pop, and rock of mainly Ashkenazi artists. So Cohen's breakout was a breakthrough. As he said in an interview on the podcast Israel Story,
we were a very small country that wanted to show the whole world, beside the wars and that we are the best fighters and soldiers, we wanted to show our culture to the world. And, everyone knew that Israel, it's Hava, Nagila, Hava, something Jewish, Eastern European Jews. And I came there and I made a change in the way they look at us, because suddenly Israel was Abani Bi, oh boy, we were young, beautiful, active, bringing new things to the world, and it was like a turning point.
That turning point went way beyond Eurovision. A year before Cohen's win in 1977, Prime Minister Menachem Begin upended the Israeli political establishment, unseating the Labor Party that had controlled the Knesset since the country's inception. He owed his victory to the Mizrahi voters who turned out for him in droves, thrilled that finally a politician seemed to actually care about their needs. And now Israel had chosen a Yemenite Jew to be its representative on the world stage, a serious breakthrough for Mizrahi artists who were regularly shunned by the tastemakers and cultural elites. The times, they were changing. Well, mostly. Because even as Israel was undergoing a mini cultural revolution, many of its neighbors stubbornly continued to pretend it didn't exist, which made its participation in Eurovision quite an inconvenience. So when it became clear that Israel was about to win the contest, Jordan cut the live broadcast, replacing it with a still image of daffodils. Hey, daffodils are beautiful. I get it. A day later, Jordanian TV aired the Belgian song, which had come in second, claiming it had won first place. And other Arab nations picked up the lie as well. I guess you could reasonably expect to get away with those kinds of shenanigans in the days before the internet. But the Arab world's Eurovision problem was just beginning. Because traditionally, the country that wins gets to host the next Eurovision, which meant that Eurovision 1979 was coming to Jerusalem, baby! It was the first time that Eurovision had been held outside of Europe, and the Arab states, they weren't happy. They weren't happy. They weren't into it. Not only did they refuse to broadcast the competition, they pressured a semi-friendly country, Turkey, to pull out entirely by threatening its oil supply. Very mature, very normal. That feels like a lot. Yugoslavia. Remember Yugoslavia? Let's be real. My primary association with the former country is Vlade Divac. Anyway, by the way, did you just go over all your heads? Vlade Divac. Do you remember Vlade? He was a great ball player. He was excellent. Though if you are a Sacramento Kings fan, you probably remember him tipping the ball out to Robert Horry, who drains the three to beat the Kings, and the Lakers go on to eventually win the championship. Anyway, Yugoslavia stayed out of the competition as well, refusing to broadcast a single contest from, quote, the occupied city of Jerusalem. A report in Yugoslavia's Delo newspaper, I'm pronouncing it Delo, I might have no idea how to pronounce it, anyway, noted that, and here's a quote, it's a good one. As is known, our country has no diplomatic relations with Israel, nor does it cooperate with it in the cultural field. Noted. A better and less petty person than I am probably wouldn't use this as an opportunity to gloat, but hey, never let it be said that I am not occasionally petty. And so I am kind of laughing at all the countries who refused to participate in or broadcast the competition in 1979, because once again, Israel won. 2 wins in 2 years. Not bad, Israel. Not bad. Though the performers kind of looked like mathletes with pizzazz. We're talking sparkly suspenders. We're talking bow ties. We're talking cute coordinated shuffle. The music must have resonated with the audience. The winning ballad, Hallelujah, swept the European charts. It was a #1 hit in Finland, Ireland, Norway, and Sweden, and found great success. Great success? I can't do that. You know the Borat voice.
Great success.
In Austria, Belgium, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and West Germany. The words are simple, the message hopeful, and the melody easy enough for anyone to hum along. It wasn't the flashiest performance in Eurovision history. There were no bells or whistles, no elaborate lighting changes or intricate costumes. But with its home court advantage, Israel went simple, with a 4-person band named appropriately Milk and Honey. It was 1 woman, 3 men singing their hearts out on their own home turf. In the videos from that night, it's easy to spot Yitzhar Cohen, decked out in the most 70s outfit I have ever seen, clapping and beaming as another singer of Yemenite descent clinched Israel's 2nd Eurovision victory so soon after the first. Once again, Israel had made headlines for all the right reasons. Less than a decade after Munich and the Yom Kippur War and the Entebbe hostage rescue, the Jewish state was finally in the news for a simple reason. A boring, corny, normal reason. For 2 brief nights in 1978 and 1979, Israel wasn't a symbol or a rallying cry or a miracle. It was just another country that had recently won a singing competition. But after the contest was over, after the glittery suspenders were hung up and the world had moved on, after the corny and beautiful message of Hallelujah had all but faded, life in Israel continued as it had before. A series of monumental, historic changes. A peace treaty with Egypt that September, a war with the PLO in southern Lebanon in 1982, an intifada in 1987, an unexpected handshake on the White House lawn in 1993, the shocking assassination of a prime minister in 1995. Through it all, the Jewish state continued sending musical acts to the European stage. Some were successful. Israel came in second in both 82 and 83 with deeply Jewish songs like Hora and Chai. Here's Avi Toledano singing Hora in 1982, accompanied by backup dancers who were inexplicably not doing a Hora. It's a quintessentially Israeli performance, a Moroccan Jewish singer backed by an ethnically diverse dance troupe celebrating an iconic Jewish tradition with Balkan and Eastern European roots. The lyrics are subtle, but the theme is unmistakable. This is a song about continuity and memory, about joy, about what happens when a scattered people return home. Just listen to the lyrics. Most of the audience likely didn't understand a word aside from maybe Hora, but they recognized joy when they saw it. More than that, they recognized specificity. No other country could have sent such a song because no other country could have told such a story. Prior songs had celebrated universal themes like love or peace or optimism. Even 1979 winner Hallelujah was ecumenical, its themes of optimism and gratitude broadly applicable to the entire world. But Hora was Israel's first attempt to represent the specifically Jewish character of the state, and it resonated. So the next year, 1983, the selection committee repeated the formula with another song about Jewish continuity, a particularly fitting theme for a song competition held in Munich. Less than 40 years after the Holocaust, 11 years after the atrocity at the Munich Olympics, the iconic Israeli singer Ofer Haza took the stage and proudly declared that the nation of Israel still lived. Fittingly, the song is called Chai, or Alive. And despite its up-tempo beat, the lyrics still give me chills. Alive, alive, alive. Yes, I'm still alive. This is the song which grandfather sang yesterday to father, and today I sing. I'm still alive, alive, alive. The people of Israel live. Nerd Corner alert. We actually ended our season 2 finale with this banger back when we used to end each episode with a Hebrew song. Should we bring that back? That was fun. I don't know. Does this count as a Nerd Corner alert? Are we big enough to have meta Nerd Corner alerts about ourselves? I don't know. That was a bit self-referential. But anyway, both in 82 and 83, Israel came in second, but it would take another 15 years and a string of good to mediocre to truly embarrassing songs for another Israeli to take home the proverbial gold. 19 years after Israel's home court Eurovision win in 1979, the Jewish state again made history, sending a groundbreaking representative who would change Eurovision forever. Her name was Donna International. But you'll have to wait until next week to hear the story of how she revolutionized Eurovision. Unpacking Israeli History is a production of Unpacked, an Open Door Media brand. Follow us wherever you get your pods. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a rating on Apple or Spotify. It really helps other people find our show. And one more time, I love hearing from you, so email me at noam@unpacked.media. This episode was produced by Rivky Stern. Our team for this episode includes Adi Elbaz, Jenny Falcon, Rob Pera, Andrew Miller, and Ari Schlach. I'm your host, Noam Weissman. Thanks for being here. See you next week.